started, I was 12 years old. I grew up in a relatively Reformed Jewish household, not that religious, but I was having a bat mitzvah. And my mom's had a retail store in gourmet food since I was 2 years old. So she said, we're going to New York and we're gonna go pick out your bat mitzvah favors. So I thought, great, we're just gonna go shopping. I didn't think anything of it. And we get into the city, and the next thing I know is I pull up to this huge facility. It's the Jacob Javits Center, and there's miles upon miles of stuff to buy. And I looked at her and I'm like, where are we? And she kind of explained how it worked. And I'm like, you can shop for a living? So at 12 years old, I didn't know exactly what I was gonna do when I grew up, but I knew I would shop for a living. So I'll tell you a little bit about what got me to this crazy idea of drinking from a fire hose and changing a store every 4 to 8 weeks. So basically, I graduated from college in 1999. I studied economics. I just like saying that. I don't remember anything about it. I moved to New York. It was kind of the end of the first round of internet boom. And I saw all these companies, Boo.com, raising all this money. And I thought, interesting, they don't really have a business model, so I'll just find a business model and come up with an idea and then raise money, which at the time I thought was a good idea, and it was for designers across all different product categories. And then when it was time to raise money, it was April of 2000, and I think most of you remember what happened then, so there was no money. So I call it the startup that never started, but that was kind of my version of business school, because I went to trade shows and conferences and kind of just learned about both the business and creative landscape. And fast forward a little bit, I kind of knew I would always work for myself. So we have shopping, and I know I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, and the future was still unknown. So I was introduced to a woman who had a luxury goods company. I thought, I'll get working for someone out of my system and then launch one of my crazy business ideas. So I did that for 3 years. I spent half my time doing merchandising and buying, and the other half I kind of worked on internet marketing and playing with Photoshop and doing things I should have never been doing. And then thought, you know, it's time to leave. It's like, I always talk about business like dating. So it's like living with the boyfriend or girlfriend you know you're not gonna marry, and you don't really know how to break up, but when you do it, it feels really good. So I did that, and I thought, you know, I had met Marcia Kilgore, who is the founder of Bliss Spas at the time and has since launched FitFlop and some amazing businesses, and she said, you wanna come consult for Bliss for 6 months? And I thought, well, that's kind of awesome. I'll do that, and then I'll take one of my ideas and launch it. Well, 6 months turned into 2.5 years at Bliss, and 10 years later, I'm still consulting. So I was never the girl who wanted to be a consultant when she grew up, but it was a serendipitous and very, very fun experience. So I've worked with clients ranging from Gilt Group to Tom's Shoes and Kraft Foods and Gap, and what I did is I kind of mashed up marketing and merchandising and business development. And I think one of the things that I found, because I didn't set out to be a consultant, I didn't go and pitch business, and I thought, you know, I'm a product and I'm selling, so let's look at myself as if I'm merchandising a catalog, so why the heck am I selling? And the one thing that I found in common with all of these businesses was the same thing. And these organizations, big or small, new or old, are United Nations without translators. And each silo and business function is its own country. So finance speaks Japanese, and marketing speaks Swahili, and merchandising speaks Taiwanese, and no one in the organization is translating. And so I got really excited because I thought, even if the company was successful and doing well, there was so much untapped potential left on the table. And so marketing, merchandising, and business development was the area that I became excited about. So now I'm just gonna talk for a little bit about the store and what led me to this. The idea is an environment, a physical retail space that has the point of view of a magazine. It changes every 4 to 8 weeks like a gallery, and it sells things like a store. We're located in Manhattan in Chelsea. It's on the corner of 10th Avenue and 19th Street. For those familiar with the area, we face the High Line. It's quite convenient that we're at 19th and you can get off the High Line at 18th or 20th. And what you're looking at is a picture of the store from the High Line before we opened. Those are eyes by the artist JR, for those who are familiar with him. So I signed the lease the last week in October. A friend bet me I couldn't be open in 4 weeks. We didn't have plumbing, electricity, cement. I've never opened a store and I'm not a contractor, so I tried it, I took the bet, and we had our first sale on December 1st. However, let me tell you, I did not have the trademark on my name and I did not have a logo. So I'm like, great, I have this physical space, I don't know what I'm gonna sell, and I don't know the name of my store. So I thought, you know what? Tech companies get beta, so why can't I have beta? And if they get practice, I want a dress rehearsal. So I just called us a startup store beta, because we were a startup and it was our beta. And I love the startup community, both the old one from the 90s and the new one from now, and sit on a few advisory boards. So I reached out to some of my favorite startups and thought, you know, why don't we take these amazing brands and bring them to life in a retail store, and we'll be startups working with startups. And one of the things that happened is we had over 40 million press impressions. And I'm not saying this to be self-congratulatory, but a lot of people are like, so you opened up a store, why isn't it a website? But if you think about it, right, like the past 20 years have been incessant, nonstop digital and technological innovation. And I would challenge you to think of 5 innovative real-life experiences in the past 20 years. It's obvious you're gonna say the Apple Store. We can maybe say Lululemon and Anthropologie, but there's not a whole lot there. And then I thought, well, we live in real life, and we get new content every second on our devices, so why can't we get new content where we spend our time? So now is time to have a conversation about the name of the company. So I'm gonna take a little sidestep to talk about that process for a minute, because I think it's indicative of how we've been able to grow with limited resources and also do things a little differently. So I have lots of business crushes, CEOs, inventors, designers. Like, that's my version of Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. My business crush, my creative crush is Stefan Sagmeister. Are most people familiar with him? Yes, okay. So I had met him once. I love cold calling. I know it's weird. I picked up the phone, I called him, he took my call, I told him what I was doing, and he said, listen, Rachel, I do a small percentage of my time to passion projects for people who are not large corporations who typically can afford the services we offer. However, right now I'm not taking on any of those projects because I'm doing my own passion project, which is called The Happy Film. It was a documentary he was working on. He said, but I'll give you an hour of my time. So we go and we sit and we meet and we're talking, and he goes, so what are you thinking of naming it? And I said, Show and Tell. And he's like, I think that's an awful name. And I thought, well, he's Austrian, he doesn't have memories of kindergarten bringing in your goldfish Fred, so that's okay. And you know, I tried selling him on it, and anyone who's heard him speak knows he can't really be sold. And he goes, well, why not just call it Story? And I'm like, well, obviously, but there's no way I can get a trademark on Story and it's Story. He goes, just try, you never know. And then about, 50 minutes, into the meeting, I had 10 minutes left, we start talking about his movie, and a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm thinking, he might be a graphic god, but he's not a marketer. And so I start asking questions about how he's funding his film and going about it, and he wasn't really sure, and he had a producer who was working on it, so I start just spitting out ideas. I still wasn't sure what I was getting at, but I spit out lots of crazy ideas. And nice to see you, I'll follow up with an email, send an email 2 days later. It was wonderful meeting you. Please send me the names of the other design firms who you think I should reach out to. And by the way, here are some of my thoughts. If you're gonna do a Kickstarter campaign, this is what I think would be a sexy prize and all these other things. So he puts me in touch with the producer of the film, who happened to be someone who I knew as an acquaintance. And he said, thanks for the ideas. They do their Kickstarter campaign. I didn't really hear from them. So there's about, I think it was anywhere from like 8 to 10 days left in the campaign. And they wanted to raise $45,000, and they were at $13,000. So I got an email from Ben, the producer, and he said, any ideas? And I looked on the website, and I looked at some of the prizes, and I gave some feedback. And I was talking on the phone, and I have no idea where this came from. And I'm like, I'll make a deal with you. I'll put $20,000 on my American Express card right now. And you won't just be $20,000 closer to your goal, but now you have a marketing campaign, and it's called We're Over Halfway There. And guess what? Now I have skin in the game, so if I help you market this and you reach your goal, then Stefan will do the branding for my new company. So I got my branding for Stefan Sagmeister. Stefan came in and he goes, all right, my process works this way. You tell me 2 words that describe the brand that you want to create, and I will present you with 1 logo. Now, you might suspect I'm mildly verbose and opinionated. So I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? So I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, well, and of course I'm like, well, why can't I get 3? And what if I hate it? And he just stood there very stern and he goes, yeah, that's our process. So I thought, okay, I want engaging and versatile. And he looked at me and he's like, really? You think you can pull that off? And I said, you asked me 2 words, I gave you 2 words. They were the first 2 that came to my mind, and I'm gonna take my non-committal self and be committed. It's engaging and versatile. And I have to tell you, since launching this company, I've done some absurdly crazy things, like opening up a 2,000 square foot store in New York with little to no money in the bank and many other things. And I've never been that nervous, nauseous feeling until the day I had the meeting with him to see my logo. And I was so sick to my stomach. So I went to the meeting, and he shows this logo, and I'm like, all right, it's nice. And then he shows that, and then he shows this. And so the idea is, that's kind of our masthead. And since we tell different stories and we reinvent the store every 4 to 8 weeks, he gave us an identity that was flexible with that. And then basically it was up to me to become engaging and versatile. So I mentioned commerce, content, and community. And those are the things that I didn't want to just talk about, but I actually wanted to bring to life. So what I'm going to do is just take the next 5 to 8 minutes and show you pictures of our stories that we've done to date. So let's see. We opened on February 1st, and our first story was Love Story. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking it's Valentine's Day, so she's doing a Valentine's Day pop-up concept. And the idea was, I wanted to tell a love story, and it wasn't accidental that it was February, because I thought, well, we don't have a PR firm and all these other things, and people always want content to write about, so it's February, and people are going to be writing about Valentine's Day, so let's do it. So every store issue has sponsors and has merchandise, and I'll get to that in a minute. So you got a little bit of a sense of the vibe of our beta with a startup store being open and light. This was Love Story, so it was moody. We had Love Her with a boudoir that had everything from lingerie to sex toys. And then on the other side of the store, we had Love Giving with everything from, Tom's shoes to packed underwear. And then we kind of looked at, the sponsor Nerve is a dating site. They also provide content. I used to describe it as kind of Vanity Fair meets Aeneas Nin. But so Nerve had relaunched their dating site, and we partnered with them, because how can you talk about love without dating? And so on the left side, what you have is kind of these confessions that are on their website, and they're kind of hysterical. And then on the right side, what we did is we took those confessions that were online and we put them on the wall in the store. So, the second one down says something like, I hope the whole cougar thing is still in style when I'm old enough to be one, which I kind of loved. We also had a photo booth there, so you could come in the store, take pictures. But what you'll notice on the photo booth are tickets, and they're free dating tickets. So you could go to nerve.com, and you could set up a profile, and you didn't have to pay, and you got a week of free dating. Is it a week or 2 weeks? 2 weeks. And something really interesting happened. And keep in mind, I'd never done any of this stuff before, right? So it's just kind of, I'm seeing what sticks. And some people would go, and they'd think they were just taking it and putting it in their bag. Other people are like, can we have it? And then it dawned on me, right? You go to a doctor's office and you're flipping through a magazine, and are you ripping out a Match.com ad and putting it in your bag? Maybe, but I've never done that. And so, so it's kind of like, why does an ad need to be an ad the way we thought of it, and why does it need to be an ad in the places that we're used to seeing it, and why can't it be cool, and why can't it add value to the conversation, and why can't it be content? The way I talk about the business model is really, I call it retail media. And what I mean by that is to not just be cute and have another term, but really, it's analogous to a magazine. So in a magazine, you have the editorial side and you have the publishing side. So our version of editorial is the merchandise that we curate and sell around a story and the events that we have. And then our publishing side of the business is the sponsorship and the in-store ads and stuff that we have as part of the story in the store, like nerve.com. And it was one of those things where, you know, oftentimes, you know, in my consulting life, it's like, okay, who's the demo, who's the consumer, who's our audience? And it felt relatively constricted, or that there could potentially even be more potential if we looked across different languages. So I thought, well, how can we create a model that is equally compelling for brands and consumers, but at the same time, deconstructs and reinvents the business model for retail. So in retail, it's almost unheard of to break even and make money in under 3 years. And people lose sleep over sales per square foot. And I'm like, A, that's, for me personally, boring and not interesting. And B, if I'm changing a store every 4 to 8 weeks, that's a hefty financial proposition. And so I thought, okay, what are other revenue sources? And C, when I looked at billboards and all these other places where people are buying media, and then going around stores and seeing that the average time spent in an Anthropologie store is over 40 minutes, that how cool would it be for brands to talk to people in those environments? So our second issue was color story. In the retail media example, you'll see on the left InStyle's cover, and on the right, that's what the outside of our windows were. In hindsight, being third month of our business, covering all of my windows in vinyl was maybe not the best idea. But you could see it from the High Line, and it got people's attention. And then you walked into the store, and you see that kind of story wall that you saw. So that's like analogous to the cover of the magazine, right? And so the middle part changes every time. And then to the left of that, you see the Benjamin Moore ad for all intents and purposes. So you have the brand's logo, and then some editorial text around it that kind of contextualizes why they're in the store. So you opened up InStyle magazine. On the left, you have letter to the editor, and on the right, you have an ad from Clinique. And on the left, there's also some editorial with product in our store. On the left, you have t-shirts, and in front of it, you have some other merchandise, and above it was another in-store advertiser called Stylement. It was an online subscription t-shirt company that was started by Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. This was, as if 4 to 8 weeks wasn't crazy enough, we did a 4-day stint called Coffee Common, and it was world champion baristas teaching people how to make coffee. And a lot of times people ask, you know, well, who's your demo and what product do you sell every story? And it's different every story. And I have 2 rules. I want anyone from a 7-year-old to a 70-year-old be able to get something out of their experience. I could care less if they buy something. I just want them to have an interesting story. They might not even like the story, but be able to experience the story. And I want to be able to sell things that are always $5 or sell something that's $2,000, and they can exist in the same story. So I'll just quickly go through. Next, we had New York story. It was everything designed or made in New York. It was the first time we worked with a co-curator. This is some of the product that we have. We sold ice cream. We sold soap that was made from leftovers at a restaurant downtown. And then we started doing paid events. So that's Tobin on the left. He started a bitter company with 3 of his friends. He did a mixology class. And I would probably say that this, of everything, is what I'm most proud of, is, you know, sitting at the store at 7:30 at night and looking at complete strangers who are different ages and different everything, kind of comfortable as if they're at a friend's house having a cocktail party. This was Nona on the left, her son's on the right. They had a pasta sauce company, Nona's Pasta Sauce, so Nona came and taught people how to make fresh pasta. These are our favorite neighbors. We had a 25-cent lemonade stand. New Yorkers love the 25-cent lemonade. And then one of the other things that I found fascinating was this, you know, I didn't design the logo, so it wasn't intentional to me. But since we opened, it didn't matter what the story was, people come in and they stand in front of the logo, in the middle of the parentheses, and they take a picture, because they're then the story. So it's not about a brand, it's about them being part of a story. And then that brings us up to speed to where we are today. So we did something a little different this past month. It's open for another week and a half before our next story, and it's called Project Pop-Up New York City. And it was an opportunity we received to execute a program for the city of New York and Mayor Bloomberg, and to find innovative digital and fashion retailers, and then 11 winners have gotten a slot in the store. We were honored to have Bloomberg there. And lastly, I just want to say, you know, if someone said you were opening up a store that had, you know, sex toys and all these other different things, they'd wonder what it is, and I call it chaotic continuity. And thank you, and come visit.